Well, this is my first Brandon Sanderson Cosmere DNF unfinished book. And I'm at this point, we've been potentially waiting to make this video, but now is the time because I can't do it. I'm done with this book.
Oh,
Putting it away and I'm leaving it there.
welcome to next chapter. I'm Marty. This is Jaden. We discuss books here. We talk about Sanderson. We're preparing for the launch of Wind and Truth. Remember to like and subscribe as we go through those videos, preparing for that. We just read through most of a book, and Jaden has had it.
Not even half. I don't even think I'm at half.
He has had it. He is done. He is done.
So
what was the book, Jaden?
This is the White Sands graphic audio, which is based on the White Sands graphic novel, basically a comic book.
Yep.
And
without the audio.
Without the audio. And they added the audio on top. And I have been diligently over the last... interesting tidbit. Maybe 15 hours total, right?
Well, okay, back off for a second. So there are...
I'm about to get into it.
Yeah. There are three parts to this graphic novel.
Yeah,
and
which
so
also doesn't make sense. Why do you need to put it into three parts?
It's because it's a graphic novel, right? Like, you can't make it super big because it's a bunch of pictures and stuff like that, right?
Okay.
Yeah, anyways, that's my...
So the books themselves are in three parts?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
And so you have part 1, part 2, part 3. It's
fine.
They actually call it volume 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
And each volume, if you listen to the graphic audio, is 5 hours long each.
So 15 hours total.
So you've gotten through the first part.
And almost
halfway through
half of the second part.
Interesting. Okay.
And we will list my grievances at some point. But as it just to start things off, to just start them off with a bang, maybe, of 15 hours, that is a very short book as far as what we read on the podcast. If you are a follower of the podcast, or even if you're brand new, welcome. But we listen to relatively long books. Stormlight Archive, no big deal, bring it on. But it has taken me probably so far 4 weeks to get like the 7 hours that I've read. Every time I go to read it, I'm like, I don't enjoy this. Why am I doing this? And the fact that happens with a Brandon Sanderson novel hurts me inside. It hurts me deeply.
I will have to say, though, it's not a full-on Sanderson novel, though, right? Because the graphic audio is taking a lot of artistic liberties, not setting aside all the sounds and stuff involved in it. That they are definitely adding things that are not in the story, and not in the way that Sanderson would have told this story.
However, I have heard that as a reason for, it's different because it's an adaptation. I will accept that, but I will put it on there with an asterisk because it says inaudible by Brandon Sanderson.
Oh yeah, he wrote the whole.
That's what matters.
Well, I'm saying though that he didn't write there's no the he saids and they saids and they walked over.
But
and
that
they
doesn't
did
happen in a graphic novel either.
Well, okay, are we talking about graphic novels or are we talking about Sanderson's writing abilities here?
Okay, that's a good point. Sanderson's writing abilities are not on the table here.
Yes.
This is a Sanderson fan zone for the most part.
That's right.
But I have to say, when I think that this book missed the mark so dramatically that I'm willing to title a video, I don't know, something like Jaden DNF's Sanderson book. Okay, shall I start with my complaints?
Okay.
Do you want to talk about your experience with White Sands?
Well, okay, I had very much the opposite experience. I liked the book. I thought it was great. It was such an interesting world system. So did you read any of this in the novelized portion of it that was for Arcanum Unbound?
I have read that, and it's been some time. But I did read the short story version.
It's just the start when he is going through the whole search. He's going on the Mastral's challenge where he's going to collect all the gems.
There are going to be some spoilers in this, but you're not going to read it anyway. So
yeah. And did you like at least that part of the story? That
was fine.
Do you like the story?
I can't even get to the story because I'm so bothered by how everything's moving forward.
It's the graphic audio that's
the graphic audio is the worst thing to happen to audiobooks. I can't even.
What a take!
I don't even know it's a hot take at this point. I've said it so many times on the podcast. People are just getting annoyed by me. But I will continue to say the graphic audio is the worst thing that's ever happened to audiobooks.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that's a huge stretch. There are clips of the Stormlight Archive where I've heard like different sections where like there's amazing moments from Words of Radiance where they have shown you the graphic audio parts, and I think it's actually pretty cool. Like I think they've done some really cool things with it. I don't know if I could get through the whole book like that. Some of the acting makes me cringe just a little bit here and there.
It's cringy.
But
hardcore cringy.
Less there, but it's not so much so that like I just absolutely hate it.
Let me say it this way. It feels like you took a movie, okay, that was made for someone's 5th grade class project, and then you're just playing the audio to me. That's what it feels like. It's that bad.
Oh my goodness. Okay, tell me, Nicole, go into your grievances and we'll start talking about it.
With full respect to all the people that have worked hard to present this piece of literature, I respect the effort, and I'm just letting you know, in the spirit of constructive criticism, it missed the mark.
To never do it again.
And please don't do it again. Let's talk through some. Okay, my biggest grievance is when you take a book, okay, and you work in dialogue, okay? Think about how it happens in a movie. The dialogue is way too crunched together and like slapped next to each other. I wonder if the majority of my issues with this are the fact that it is edited so poorly. Okay, so maybe some editor somewhere just absolutely botched it. But they slap these audio pieces in, and they're like cut on both ends. There's no fade. It's just immediate right into a sound effect, and then the sound effect cuts off. You're like, okay, well, that was jarring all on its own. And then you just like sound effect, second sound effect, third sound effect. Let's just play them all together. They'll understand. And like that's not how you make a movie. And when they say a movie in your mind, it's a stretch, because they're nowhere near a movie. They're nowhere even close. It's like a bunch of people recorded separately all of their audio. Someone's trying to splice it together and then adding random sound effects to it. And that is not how I want to hear a story.
I had a completely different experience than you. The whole part when Ace is going in to raid the place where all the thieves are at and everything, yep. And you're hearing like all of like the blow darts and stuff going and just like all over the place. I'm like, I could see it in my mind. It was a movie in my mind in those moments. I really, really enjoyed that. And even like with the twists and turns, you're hearing the yelling in the background, the fighting, and like all of that stuff is so exciting to me. Honestly, I feel like the graphic audio for White Sand works way better than the graphic audio did for Warbreaker, because Warbreaker, I'm trying to like hear all the important lines where you're learning about the world and the world building and stuff. But then like, for example, so I only listened the first 10 minutes of Warbreaker in graphic audio because I couldn't do it, because I'm like, I gotta go back to the audio.
It's too painful.
Well, it wasn't that it's painful. It was more that like, he's like, okay, he'd send his little straw man out in the very beginning to go like fetch the keys. But then all of a sudden you hear like the guards just yelling and screaming in the background. It's because they had just opened up the sword, and then they end up dying. But you don't find out about that until like later, like several paragraphs later, that they had opened the sword and stuff like that. And so the graphic audio knows to imply that. So anyways, it was confusing, but I was also trying to hear about the magic system that he's explaining at the same time. And so I'm like, I'm missing things. And so anyways, I didn't think it worked well for that, but it worked really well for White Sand because it was supposed to be just like a comic book anyways. And so like a lot of that explanation that Sanderson would normally throw in there isn't in the graphic novel anyways. It's just like all the comment bubbles and things like that.
Fair enough. So they were working with a difficult medium, okay? I respect that. I do. And okay, let's take a break from my frustrations with the format of graphic audio and just how absolutely horrendous it is, and talk about the story.
Okay.
There were a couple of things about the story that, again, I was like, what? One of them, the first thing that ever happens is like the path that he has to run.
Yeah.
Just like, it just felt so like the whole lead up is like, oh, this is gonna kill you. This is gonna be the worst thing, the hardest thing ever. It's like you're barely gonna survive. Only Mashals can survive. And I'm like, you ran across the sand, climbed a hill, found something in a cubbyhole, and then don't get eaten by this thing, and you win. You're done. Like,
the whole idea
thing pops up. Yeah, it's scary, but you don't even need the sphere from it.
It's about over mastering, Jaden. It's about
it's an hour long.
you will be able to. It's not just an hour.
Yeah, it's all the time he has.
Okay, if it is just an hour though, it's still about overmastering because you have your water that you're using up so quickly, and so the idea is that he's really good at being like conservative with his water and everything, and using just the one strand of sand and getting everything done. I thought it was really cool, dude. I love that whole part.
I had so many little. The worst thing that can happen to me in reading a story is when I'm taken out of the story to say, just no.
Really?
That happened. It happens almost every time I sit down to read the book. It's just hard for me, and this is why I feel like I'm being a little bit critical on this, but it's honestly the reason that I'm probably not going to finish it.
Yeah.
I can't. I could force myself to finish it. I could. It's not that long. And I wanted to get a full, nice review for the podcast. But I can't. There's so many other things that I want to read. So many other like stories, even just Sanderson stuff that I want to catch up on before Dragonsteel comes out.
Yeah.
But White Sand is just really not in it. For like, okay, let me give you another story example of things that I'm just like, what?
Okay, did you not like the massive turn of events when they're at the whole
Everybody gets
ceremony?
murdered?
Yeah, that was insane. What a you did not see that coming.
No.
There's no way. And it was such a cool turn of events. Like, wow, like this story is going a complete different way than I expected.
Yeah, I think the reason I didn't see it coming is because this is the most passive I've ever been in a story.
Oh gosh.
Because it's just like normally when I'm reading a story, I'm like engrossed by it. I'm trying to figure out what's happening, who the people are, what they're up to. But this, I'm just trying to get through it. And so sometimes it's like, oh, that's crazy. Everybody got murdered. Wild. But it just kind of comes up out of nowhere because you're hearing like, like, what is it? Is someone running? Is someone like, where are they? It's just random footsteps. It's probably the same footsteps clip. They just keep playing over and over again. It's like not helpful to me. The random yells, it's like dialogue and then, ah! You're like, who yelled? Was it this guy, that guy? Like, no one knows what's going on. It's the same voice for half these people. And it's just, ugh.
I thought it was great.
It's not great.
You just have to have the imagination for it.
I probably just have a weak imagination, I guess.
Kidding.
It's, maybe they didn't pick the right actors.
That's
maybe
funny.
It's just
I will say that the Dark Side girl,
so annoying.
Chris. So we keep hearing about Chris though in like one of the newer, maybe Ember Dark. I think she appears.
Interesting.
In that one.
Is it the same Chris that's in?
Oh, it is
Secret History.
That's the one. I think that's that we're hearing.
I think she's with their same group too.
Yeah. Really?
She's with a group.
Yeah.
She's the leader of some
Someone let us
group.
know about that.
But it's just
damn Chris. She's
the voice
cooler.
she's way cooler, more capable.
Yeah.
She just seems like honestly whiny. I'd probably say like petulant at times. It's just you're just like, who is this person? Like she's leading this expedition, but constantly she's like, okay, well now we'll go over here and I'm gonna get super offended, like way too offended that he didn't tell me that he was saying. I'm like, lady, lay off. Like
I will say, so I really liked the first volume of the book.
Okay.
I'm halfway through the second volume and I'm losing interest.
Oh, my interest is gone.
Yeah. Because like they're trying to go to each group and stuff to find out like, can we get the support of them? And I'm like, okay, this is kind of dragging on. So like that's kind of where I'm at with the story. It's not been terrible for me though.
Well, she hates him when she talks to him, and now she's working for him, and now she's like,
yeah,
it just feels like everything's flying around in different directions. I don't see any sort of cohesive story. There were some interesting points to this. Like one of the things that I even wrote down, I'm like, oh, this is something I'll talk about in the podcast when we do our review. It's like how ironic that like the last thing that his dad says to him is like, this sash is going to be more trouble than benefit. And then like not 5 sentences later, like someone finds it in the city when he's trying to hide. Someone finds his golden sash. I'm like, that's pretty ironic. Your dad's like, this is going to be more annoying than you think. And then he finds it and then it becomes a whole problem. He almost gets murdered.
Yeah.
But there's little things that get hidden in there. But I just think the format made it so that I can't track of all these things in my mind. Like half the time the dialogue is like labored breathing and then it's a yell and then it's normal dialogue.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is going on? I can't see this scene if they keep changing everything up.
Totally. Well, I was looking in the list of Sanderson's books that he's written, and I think White Sand was one of his like earliest ideas for stories, and like one of his like original Cosmere like story ideas. I think he was written with his like unpublished books that he has, and so but I think that's one of the reasons why he wants to make an actual novelized version where he is actually writing a story, puts everything together, probably also gives him an opportunity to have another shot at the story once he's like improved on things.
So maybe as a glimmer of hope, I will definitely read the prose version.
Yeah.
I think the magic system is cool. I think it has potential. I'm like, as soon as you layer in the and then he like has that, I'm like, what?
I know. Well, I think honestly, and I think
every time he tries to sand bend, whatever, it's like it's just feels so forced, and you don't know like why is he always grimacing and yelling? I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I'm definitely gonna DNF the graphic audio. No shot that I finish this in graphic audio because it's just getting worse and worse for me.
Yeah.
The only chance I have to finish this is graphic novel if I can find it and reasonable and I like it well enough. I'm not really a comic person. Or if he writes the prose version, I will read that. But this is going down in history as my first Sanderson DNF.
Wow, that's intense. Well,
it just is.
Honestly, though, I wouldn't think that's too terrible, though, because I think you've gotten what you need from here. Because we've already seen in the Cosmere, in Rhythm of War, they talk about white sand being used and to detect investiture. And so I think that's pretty much the only takeaway you need from white sand. Perfect. That's my guess. That's all you're going to need.
I wipe my hands of it and I leave.
Yep, and to meet Chris, I'm sure, because like she's also a
this is not the meeting I was hoping for
world
with Chris.
Traveling person. Yes.
So annoying. The fact that they've harped on the fact that her betrothed died on the light side so many times that if he turns out to be alive, I'm just going to be like, no. I'm just not interested. Honestly, I wish he wasn't. Because
oh my god,
they've literally every chapter is like, yeah, he's totally like super dead. Like he's probably a skeleton somewhere. Yeah, he's totally dead. Super dead. I'm like, okay, guys, why? Like, she's not even like sad about it. She's just continuously explaining the fact that he's dead. It's just those elements of it. You were talking about this in a previous episode.
Yeah.
Where it's like you have to feel like dialogue is believable in a scenario.
Yeah.
And this dialogue feels like it was copy and pasted into half of these scenarios.
Interesting.
And that just
this is again
hard.
It would be interesting to listen to the graphic audio while reading the graphic novel to see where the differences are coming from.
I can see some elements when I'm imagining a comic book of like this was probably in a square bubble explainer versus like an actual dialogue.
But I would love to see like things that weren't explainers at all, like things that the graphic audio
just added, or removed. On its own. Yeah. There's parts they should have removed, like they did an interview with the translator. And instead of just
that part actually
they just
really
repeated
me.
Every sentence through the translator. I'm like, that's just a great use of time, guys. Thank you. Glad I spent 20 minutes listening to the same thing said multiple times.
Yeah,
that was hilarious. That you're adapting the book. Just adapt it. At least make the first person's voice like unintelligible. That will like make sense through a translator.
That's what I was thinking too.
Anything, little things like that. I want to give this a final rating before we wrap up.
Ooh, okay.
In my DNF version of White Sands. Is that okay?
I'm kind of nervous to hear what you say.
My final rating of White Sands is a 3.7.
Oh, okay. Let me know. You got 20 seconds.
20-second explainer of a 3.7 is it's at least less than a 5 because the story seems so disjointed and painful. And it's like there's too much. Like the story itself gave me a 5 vibe.
Yeah.
Graphic audio just kept going lower and lower and lower. Okay. Every single time it was like, oh, yeah, that's not going to work for me. Format brought it all the way down to 3.7.
I mean, I just got to give this one a 6 for me. I actually did not mind it. I don't mind the graphic audio. I think the graphic audio probably brings it down a lot more than it should for you.
Brings it down a lot.
Yeah. But I don't think it's a terrible story. I think the magic system's interesting. His whole relationship with his father and him is very cool. The whole twists and turns of events are good. But then it starts to come pretty slow. So
we'll see if the prose version ends up recovering. But let's see what your thoughts are. If you have comments, please let us know what you would rate White Sands, what you think of the graphic audio or graphic novel. We really want to hear from you, and hopefully it's better than my experience. But hey, we have to be honest on the podcast. That's what we're here for, and we'll see you guys in the next one.